I actually thought was appealing about it is the fact that, I know from being in the banking business that there's all sorts of government eyes, peering into our every transaction. And that isn't the way it used to be in the olden days. There was privacy and secrecy, and I think that is better. I don't like it when the government knows everything that you do, because that is a bad situation. See, the government wants us to think that it's bad if we have privacy, because people can do bad things with their privacy, right? People can trade in drugs or terrorism and stuff like that, which is true. But that's always the case when you're talking about freedom, right? People can always abuse freedom. Freedom of speech can be abused, because when you have freedom of speech, people can say hurtful things. People can say hateful things. People can say things that you don't agree with. But that doesn't mean you eliminate free speech. You have to defend free speech. So just because some people will abuse their financial privacy doesn't mean we eliminate the right to financial privacy. Because here is the risk. Once the government has outlawed financial privacy, that is a tyrannical situation. Because even if a government today is a benevolent government, it could become an oppressive government. And now, if it can see what everybody is doing, it can make sure that it maintains that oppression and it maintains that power. Because let's say the government is the bad guy, which happens all the time. Governments become corrupt, right? They become evil. And now the people who you might think are terrorists are actually freedom fighters. They're patriots. They're trying to restore liberty. They're trying to fight a tyrannical government. Well, it's harder to do that if there's no financial secrecy, if you have no privacy. If the government knows exactly where all your money is, then you cannot organize a resistance against the corrupt government. So in order to keep government honest, and in order to maintain the ability of the population to be able to resist and fight back tyranny, I am willing to live with the fact that some people will launder money and some people might use it for terrorism, because I don't want to give up my liberty to get that extra security, because I'll lose both, right? And I didn't make this up. I'm quoting smarter patriots than me. But that is an appeal. But the problem is, Bitcoin actually doesn't have all that privacy. There are other cryptocurrencies that are actually far more private than Bitcoin. So if you're really concerned about privacy, Bitcoin is not the currency that you're going to use. But there is a value in, I do believe that criminals, to the extent that they think that Bitcoin is anonymous, they are willing to use it because they don't care if the value drops by 10 or 20% between the time they get it and the time they spend it, because that's actually cheap for money laundering. See, normally, let's say you're a criminal, and I earned a bunch of cash, right? And I got all this money in a briefcase, and I want it to be laundered somehow. Well, normally you pay points, right? Maybe in order to launder, $1 million of drug money, by the time I send it through the system, I may only have $600,000 left. I may end up having to pay all the people that help me launder it 40% of what I earn, right? I mean, so people who have to launder money know that there is a cost to be paid. So if I'm going to transact in Bitcoin, even if the price of Bitcoin dropped 20 or 30% between the time I get it and the time I turn around and spend it, hey, that's not bad, right? Because the money got laundered. But the problem is it's not working. And here is another thing, and this is, a problem. In order for Bitcoin to go more mainstream, because that's what Bitcoin needs, right? In order to get more buying in, they need to appeal to investors. They need to get the investing public. They want to get institutions in. In order to do that, they need more regulation. I keep hearing people in Bitcoin saying, we need more government regulation. That's going to make the market better. That destroys the very appeal that Bitcoin had initially, right? That's another contradiction. Like, I remember one of the things that people used to tell me about Bitcoin and gold back in the day, years ago, they would say, Peter, I don't want to buy gold because it's manipulated. They have futures contracts, and these people can manipulate the price of gold in the futures market. And so the reason I want to buy Bitcoin is because it doesn't have a futures market, and so it can't be manipulated, right? Well, now it has a futures market, and you know what everybody was saying? Oh, a futures market is good for Bitcoin. This legitimizes it. This makes it more mainstream. This means more people can invest. It means more people can hedge. So in other words, Not having a futures contract was good, but then having a futures contract was also good. Heads I win, tails you lose. You can't have it both ways. Again, but all the stuff that Bitcoin has to do to try to appeal to government regulators and the mainstream, it has to sacrifice the very qualities that was the initial source of its appeal for the libertarian free market guys that saw this as a solution to these government problems. Someone's asking me, what's the intrinsic value of my shirt? Well, because if I didn't have my shirt, I'd be sitting here, half naked. I don't know how many people just want to stare at my body, and so, to the extent that, that is saving me some embarrassment, there's some intrinsic value there. I don't know. I mean, if it was a little cold, my shirt would have the intrinsic value of providing me with warmth. But it also can look good. I mean, it can have the value of giving me some style and making me look a little better. I mean, maybe that can help me in life. I mean, certainly people who are single, who are looking to attract members of the opposite sex, it helps to look good. People, value that. But even in business, I mean, people will value appearance, the way people are dressed, and the clothes that they wear, and the style that they have, and they say something about them. So there's a lot of intrinsic value in clothing. There's intrinsic value in brands. Obviously, I'm wearing a polo shirt. I mean, I could wear a shirt that was made not by Ralph Lauren that maybe would look similar and that would have been cheaper. But there's some extra value that is ascribed by consumers to brands. That's why companies want to create them. I mean, certainly look at women's handbags. I mean, you could find a handbag. Women can pay $5,000, $10,000 for a handbag. And you can buy one for $100. It'll carry just as much stuff. But people, they've created a brand, they've created a market, they've cultivated it, and there are people that want to buy those status symbols, and they're willing to pay. And the value is the status that they believe they have and the way they feel about themselves. I mean, it's you buy something that makes you feel good. What's the value of that? I mean, we're not here indefinitely, and so we need to do things that make our lives better, make us feel better. But again, none of this, Bitcoin doesn't accomplish any of this. I mean, does it make people feel better? Yes, because they think they're going to get rich, because they just think the price of Bitcoin is going to go up. Well, they're not going to feel better when the price comes crashing down and they've lost. Okay, so if you're going to try to say that the concept of intrinsic value and utility are different, then I can say gold has utility and Bitcoin has none, right? The utility of a commodity or of anything is what you can use it for, right? What you can do with it, right? And I think in order for you to be money, in order for you to be a store of value, you have to have a utility beyond functioning as a medium of exchange. You have to actually have demand in the real world. Bitcoin doesn't have that, right? I keep hearing Bitcoin has utility because you can use it. That is not the utility. Using it as a medium of exchange is not utility. It's what you can do with it when you're not using it as a medium of exchange. And by the way, gold, as I said, gold works beautifully as a medium of exchange, better than Bitcoin, right? Because you don't have to trade the actual bar of gold, the actual ounce of gold. When the first paper money was created that was backed by gold, it was a convenience. It was more convenient. I kept my gold at a goldsmith. He stored it, and I had an IOU from a trusted goldsmith, which became a bank, and so I could negotiate the paper claims to my gold without actually having to go back and forth to the vault every time I wanted it. What people used for transactions were lower quality metals. Pennies were made of copper. Nickels were made of nickel. Dimes, quarters were made of silver, right? And so, gold was for more expensive transactions. That's the way it could be again. But as I said at the beginning of this whole thing, the internet, the ability to have your gold stored and then digitally broken down into grams and transferred instantaneously anywhere in the world for free, that is the beauty. That's what all this energy that is being focused on these cryptocurrencies should be focused into remonetizing gold. That is the way to take the power away from the politicians. The only problem is they may stop that. But you know what? All the governments won't stop it. Some governments will allow it. And there will be a way for it to slide because gold will work. It's worked in the past and it will work in the future. Crypto has never worked. It's never worked as money. It's worked as it's rewarded people so far who speculated in it. Although there's still a bunch of people who bought Bitcoin at 15,000, 16,000, 18,000 who've never seen a profit. And some of those people might have sold out when it was at 3,000 or 4,000, and they're never coming back. They got burned, and that they've learned their lesson. And people who are buying now are going to learn a bigger lesson. Hey, Paul, can you get me some water in this cup? Go and do it. And there's cold water in the moving room. That's taking work. Look, Bitcoin is not going to become as popular as email. Again, email is a more efficient way of sending a written communication than putting a stamp on a letter and putting it in the mailbox, right? And so the reason that emails are now so ubiquitous, and whereas when they first started, very few people used them, is because it works so well. I mean, there's so much value. That is not the case. Bitcoin today does not function as a better medium of exchange than any of the fiat currencies that currently exist. I mean, if people want to buy something right now, it's much easier to pay for it with dollars or euros than it is with Bitcoin. Now, if you live within a small group of people who want to exchange Bitcoin with one another, but it's more like barter. It's more like you have to find somebody who actually wants your Bitcoin, right, in order to transact it. If I wanted to buy something with Bitcoin directly, not using BitPay, I would have to find the person who wants it. Remember, I said I was on Fire Island, and I couldn't find a single person who wanted my Bitcoin, right? So you have to find the person. It is easier to transact in other currencies. And so that's not the case with email. People found out if I want to send my friend a letter, it's easier to email him one than to write a real letter and put it in the mail and buy a stamp. So that's why it won. It was better. Bitcoin right now is not better as a medium of exchange. Now, have people made money speculating in Bitcoin? Yes. But that's not enough. Just because people have made money speculating it in the past, a lot of people are going to lose money speculating in the future. Bitcoin is going to go bust, and people are going to lose a lot of money. Then why is it going to spread, right? And if Bitcoin goes from 20,000, which was the high, and right now it's 10, 11,000. It was below 10,000 this morning. Let's say it goes back to 1,000. I mean, that's still way above where it started, but the vast majority of people would have lost most of their money when Bitcoin goes to 1,000 again. Well, why would where's the appeal? When so many people lose so much money, and then of course all the regulations are going to come crashing down on it, make it even less efficient than it is now. So no, I mean, people try to compare the invention of Bitcoin to the invention of the internet. It's nothing like it. I mean, people say this is like the car, this is like electricity, like this is some kind of seminal moment, that Bitcoin is like the greatest invention. There are people who think it's the greatest thing ever invented, ever, like better than the wheel. This is not transformative. This is the type of nonsense that you get in a bubble when people exaggerate the significance of what Bitcoin is and what Bitcoin can accomplish. Do the people who own a bunch of Bitcoin who want to sell it, do they want you to believe this nonsense? Of course, because they need a way out. They need an exit strategy. If they want to actually buy their Lambo, somebody has to want their Bitcoin. So they have to cultivate a demand. And that's what this nonsense does. But anyway, so did everybody stop listening, or was it just my son? How are we looking on people? Oh, well, so we have 4,000 people listening, or 3,000 left. So I guess people are finding value in this format, even if it's not ideal. But yeah, Peter, is John McAfee totally wrong about crypto? Absolutely. He is completely 100% wrong. Look, and some of these guys, look, I ran into Tim Draper. Who, look, Tim Draper's a smart guy. So is McAfee. I've never really spoken to McAfee, but I had a conversation, a nice conversation with Tim Draper. I think it was in New Orleans in the green room. And look, I mean, the guy is 100% committed. He totally believes in this. I don't think he's making this up, and he's a smart guy. So, but then again, there are other smart people that agree with me. right? And a lot of people in the investment community that I respect, like Jimmy Rogers, totally agrees with me. What's his name? Mark Faber totally agrees with me. Ron Paul was on television today. I saw him interviewed on CNBC. I've had private conversations with him. He doesn't own Bitcoin. He thinks it's going to collapse. But, he believes in freedom, so he talks about, hey, I don't want government interfering. I believe in competition. He just doesn't think Bitcoin is going to win. But a lot of people think that Ron Paul, believes in Bitcoin. He doesn't. He believes in freedom. He believes in competition. But he thinks gold is going to win. But yes, there are some smart people that have been suckered into this. Now, again, I don't know, because there are a lot of people who have a lot of money in Bitcoin that, they have a vested interest. Now, people say the same thing about me. Peter, well, you just need the price of gold to go up because you own it. Look, nothing that I say is going to influence the price of gold. And there's always going to be buyers for gold. But believe me, everything that people say, these big whales, everything that they say is influencing the price of Bitcoin. All this pump, all this stuff is hype that I constantly see, right? It's all meant to get the price to go up, because people need new buyers. That's why it's like a naturally occurring Ponzi scheme. How do Ponzi schemes work? How do people make money in a Ponzi scheme? Because they get out from the new money that's coming in. The reason Ponzi schemes are illegal is because they never work, because there's always somebody holding the bag. Because the money that people make on a Ponzi scheme is always at the expense of the money other people lose who get in later in the game. That's why they're illegal. It's unfortunate that, the government runs a Ponzi scheme. It's called Social Security. So they're allowed to do it, right? Social Security was a great deal for Ima Fuller, who was the first woman. She paid in like $20 and collected $20,000 because she lived to be 100 years old. And she was the first person that ever got a Social Security check. So she came into the Ponzi scheme at the beginning. But the reason that Ima Fuller made money is because a bunch of millennials are going to lose their ass, because they're at the end of the Ponzi scheme. But the